I have some DIYs I want to do for Canada Day. So for my first one, I'm going to use this cardstock paper pad that I got from Dollarama. It has some nice heavyweight cardstock in it. And I'm going to use the white cardstock. So because I'm going to be making a banner and I want 5 pieces on my banner, I'm going to use 3 sheets of it as well as a couple of these napkins. I believe I got these at Dollarama last year. And I'm just going to measure my napkins to see how wide I need each one of my banner pieces to be so that I can make sure that I have the full image on each piece. So I'm going to cut my cardstock down to the size that I need. And yeah, so I think I cut my first one at 5 inches. Then I realized that I actually needed 5.5 inches. So that's where I made mistakes. I had enough with the 3 sheets still because I'm only going to have 5 pieces on my banner. So I've taken the back off of the napkin. I'm cutting all the sections apart, but I need 5 pieces, so I need one more piece from here. And I am going to take the moose head and I'm going to take the backing off. So make sure you take the backing off all of your napkin, whether there's 2 pieces or 3 pieces, all you want is the front piece. So I'm not going to Mod Podge this on here because I already did a test on this napkin and the black ink runs a little bit. So it kind of dirties it up when you're putting Mod Podge onto it. So when you're using Mod Podge on napkins, that's something that you should always do, is make sure that you do a little test to make sure your napkin's not going to run. I've ruined a few projects that way. So I'm just using a glue stick and I'm going to glue all of my napkins onto all of these banner pieces. And once they're all glued on, I'm just going to trim them out with scissors and make sure all my edges are down. And I have all 5 pieces for my banner. So I don't want the edges to lift. And I know it runs, so I'm just very carefully going to go around the edges of all these pieces, just the very edges. I don't want to go over any of the white part of the picture because I don't want to run that black in there. But I think if I put my edges all down, they're not going to lift up, and I'll be able to use this banner again next year. So you can see right there, see that gray? That's where it runs. Yeah. So I have all my pieces. They're dry and I need to string them together. So I'm going to use a piece of this white grosgrain ribbon that I got in I got it in a bundled bag of stuff at the thrift store. And so I'm just going to tie a knot at the beginning. And then I'm going to lay this out and hot glue it all along the top of all of these pieces. That's going to join my banner pieces together, but it's also going to create a nice crisp edge along the top of the napkins because the napkins don't go all the way to the top of the cardstock. So I want about a 1/2 inch between each one. So I took a little Post-it note that was about 1/2 inch wide, and I'm just using that to do my spacing. And then all of these pieces are going to go across. And I've taken the top of the cardboard, wrapped it down around, and hot glued that as well. Now, my pieces were curling up a little bit, and I didn't want that. So I'm using these jumbo-sized popsicle sticks to add a little bit of support on the back of this cardstock. It'll also add a little bit of weight and make all these pieces hang down nicely when I've got them done. So there's my banner all completed. Now for my second project, I'm going to use this serving paddle that I bought at Dollarama, as well as this large wooden die cut maple leaf that my granddaughter started painting, and then she didn't like the way it was working out, so she left it and went on to something else. I also have that metal word that comes in a package of 3 from Dollarama, and I am going to give this maple leaf a fresh coat of paint, and of course I'm going to paint it red for the maple leaf that's on our flag. So I've got the serving paddle. It needs to be painted as well, and I'm going to do white on here. So this is a bamboo, so it's got a nice smooth surface. You don't have to prime it. You don't have to sand it. You don't have to do anything. So I'm just giving it 2 or 3 coats. I think I did 3 on it to get a nice white, crisp look. And while I was painting that, I also gave the welcome a couple of coats of white paint. And I'm pretty sure that I added like a teaspoon of Mod Podge into the welcome, or into the white paint when I did the welcome word, because I wanted it to stick to that metal. So you can see where I'm going with this. I'm going to layer everything on the board like this, and I've got some red grosgrain ribbon that I am going to make a stripe at the top and the bottom. So I have my placement. I am going to use a little bit of E6000 along with the hot glue. I didn't even paint the back of that. I'm not going to see it. It's going to be hanging on my door. Nobody's going to see that. So a little bit of E6000 so that it won't fall off, and hot glue to hold it in place until the E6000 dries. And the reason I used the E6000 is because this is going in between my screen door and my front door, on the outside of my front door. It gets really hot in there when the sun shines through the glass of the screen door. So I'm taking this grosgrain ribbon. I put some double-sided adhesive on the back of that, but it's not holding very well. So I'm going to just stick that down on the front, then flip it over and hot glue the back. So between the double-sided tape and the hot glue, it should hold. So I'm going to make a bow for this. I'm just using some of this really wide jute ribbon from Dollarama. This stuff is 5 inches wide, so it's big. It makes, it really makes a statement when you're using this big wide stuff. So I'm just making a fold in that. I'm going to take a bit of this red ribbon here to tie the middle. Then I'm just going to pinch pleat the middle of this, make sure that I actually have the middle, and then I'm going to tie it with that thinner red ribbon. Then I'm going to take some of this glittery dark red ribbon. This is left over from Christmas DIYs, but I mean red's red. And I am going to make myself a bow by just folding this over 3 times on each side, I think, maybe 4, but I think 3 times. I cut a little slit in each side of the ribbon through all the folds. Then I just fluff it out, and I have a bow for the top. Now I'm just going to make tails for this, and I'm tying them on, then tying everything in the back, and then I am going to tie it at the back of the paddle. Once again, just for a little bit of extra so it doesn't fall off. Then I'm going to hot glue it where I want it to sit. And it's going to hang on my front door instead of a traditional wreath. So let me know what you think of this one. Okay, so for my next project, I'm going to use these wood rounds that I just picked up from Dollarama. They are $2.50. You get 3 pieces. For this one, I am going to paint it white. I'm also going to take 4 of these corks that came in a bag from the dollar store as well. I've had these for quite a while. I'm going to paint these white as well. I don't need to paint the ends of these, just around the sides. Okay, so my little round is dry, and of course these are dry as well. So I want to use this for a little riser. So I'm going to put these on for little legs. I'm going to put them right across from each other like this. So I'm going to put a little E6000 and a little hot glue on each one. So I have my legs on and I have my little riser. This is just a good height. So now I'm thinking I would like to have this on here. And it's just one of the die cuts. I have this whole package of die cuts that I got from Dollarama. And there are multiple maple leaves in here. So there are these ones like this that look like the flag, but I really do like on the white background. I think that that is pretty, but I might want to use this riser for other holidays as well. So I don't want to put this on here permanently. So I think what I'm going to do is just use a little bit of a double-sided tape that I can just take this off of here later. So that's all I'm going to do with just a little double-sided tape. I'm going to put a little bit of tape on there, and then I'm going to put this right on here, and I'm just going to do that. So hardly a DIY, but I have this nice little riser that I can use, that I can also peel this off of here and use just as a farmhouse decor piece, or I can also use it for a different holiday just by adding something different to the top. So that's kind of my DIY number 3. Okay, so for my next project, I'm going to use this clear plate. I got this at Dollarama. It is anchor hawking. I always go for a couple of the anchor hawking plates whenever they have them, because they're one of the few clear plates that you can get that don't have engraving on the bottom that show through if you want to put something on the back of the plate. And I like to do anything in like a reverse Mod Podge onto the back side, so that if you want to, you could still put something on the plate and it would be food safe. So I'm just going to put this down here. And I have this napkin. So this napkin just has 4 maple leaves on it. I am going to cut out one of the maple leaves. And as always, when you're going to use Mod Podge and use any kind of a napkin, you're going to separate all your layers. And I'm going to use dishwasher safe Mod Podge because I do want to be able to wipe this down. After all, it is a plate. Remember, you're going to look at this from the top side of the plate. So you're going to take your napkin and you're going to put the bright side down. And then you're going to add your Mod Podge and just brush to the outside edge like this. Always remember to be very gentle with your brush. The glue that you're using is going to do the job. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. And if your brush starts to get too dry, always be sure to add some more glue onto your brush so that it has a nice glide and it doesn't drag across that napkin and tear it. I think that's down really good. I'm going to grab myself a makeup sponge. These are just the ones from Dollarama. And I'm going to dip my sponge into there. And I'm just going to pat Mod Podge on this plate. I want a layer of Mod Podge on here to give my paint something to stick to, and so that I don't have some really distinct brush stroke lines. And this will help prevent that just by dabbing on the Mod Podge. So I'm going to go all around the plate. Okay, so this is, it's not cured, but it's dry enough to touch, and it's not going to pop back off the plate if I add a little bit of paint to this. So I just cut the end off of this. I'm going to use the same makeup sponge, and I'm going to start adding white paint to this. So first, I want you to notice how faint the maple leaf is. But if you put some white paint behind it, I'm just going to put some on here and flip it over and show you. I don't know if you can tell or not, but as the paint becomes opaque, it makes it easier to see the red on there. So I'm going to start in the center, and I'm just going to add paint. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I missed a couple steps here as I've been painting a bunch of stuff. So I took my plate, on the back of it, I did 3 coats, I think, of the white paint using a sponge. And if you can see how good that turned out, it's solid white. Having the glass clean on this side means that I can put cookies or snacks or something on this plate if I want to. What I didn't show, I just took a little small brush. This is one of the Dollarama set crafting brushes. It's not a really expensive brush. I try to stay away from using expensive brushes in red paint. This has been washed with soap, and there's red in here. Red paint is the hardest to get out, so I try to use crappy brushes for that. But I just took this and went like this. You can see where it's all rough and uneven, but it needed to have a red rim. And I didn't want it to look perfect. I could have taken a paint pen and gone around here and made a nice perfect line, but I wanted something that was a little bit older, maybe a little bit more farmhouse look. And do you know the black and white enamelware? You can also get that in red and white. It's usually vintage, but the red and white enamelware. And I thought that that was kind of what this looked like, a chipped enamelware etch. So that's what I was going for there. But I do want to be able to wash this plate in the sink. So because of that, I'm going to take my dishwasher safe Mod Podge, and I'm going to take a brush that's just a little bit wider, and I'm going to do a coat of this. So let me, I got out some cupcake liners, guys. These are the perfect things if you're putting different colors of paints and glues and things like that down. Perfect being able to use these little cupcake liners. Then you just toss them. So I want just a coat of Mod Podge on here to seal this. So I'm not going to go way down on the plate. I'm just going to go around my edge like this and then brush to the outside to take off any excess. I'm going to go around my plate like this. This will also give a little bit of a gloss finish to the edge of the plate. It kind of looks funny that the whole plate's glossy because it's glass, and then you get to the edge and it's flat paint. So it will make this shine. It'll make it just look a little bit more like it's supposed to be here. So I'm going to take my finger and just go, there's a couple spots where I can see where I went a little bit far onto the plate. So I'm just going to take my finger, I'm going to use this little rag here, and I'm just going to go around the edge and wipe off anything that's hanging down too far. But I do want to be able to put some treats on this plate. That's why you do the reverse Mod Podge in the first place, because you want to preserve the plate. So I'm going to turn this over and just hold it on the palm of my hand like this. And using the rest of this Mod Podge, I'm going to give this a seal. And as soon as this dries, it'll be ready to use. So I have these little jars. These are the little jelly-sized jars that you get at Dollarama. And I want a couple of these in red for my coffee bar. I'm going to go with this, and it is the dark Christmas red. I'm just going to put a little bit out here on my paper, and I'm going to sponge them on the outside of these jars. And because a lot of these projects are a lot of painting, I'm going to take this flower pot, which I haven't been using anymore. It's got some butterflies on it, and I'm going to repaint this one white. So I'm going to paint all three of these white. I'm going to take the red paint that I've been painting on my jars, and just on this rim going around here, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to dab right around like this so that it doesn't go anywhere I don't want it to, just on the rim. So I've taken my three little pots, I've painted the rims red, this white. You can see where I'm going with this. I'm on the East Coast. I want a little Canada Day lighthouse. So I'm going to put this together by gluing this on here and then this on here. It'll look like this, just like a tiny little lighthouse. And then instead of, because this is just for my coffee bar or my tiered tray, something like that, maybe to put on a little shelf. So because it doesn't need to be outside, I can just set this tiny little tea light on top like this, and it looks like a completed lighthouse. I'm not going to glue this on. This is just a perfect height to sit, just sit like this on the shelf. And because I can lift it up, haven't even pulled that out yet, but I can lift this up, and now I have a little light on the top of my lighthouse. I'm going to take my red paint pen first and make sure I've got my paint started. I'm going to draw just a window here, and I'm going to do one on the little one as well. Just a little one. I want this to have a little bit of a shiny texture to it. And all my craft paints are flat. They're just a flat paint. Matte paint, they're flat. I don't even know if I showed you this, but all I did was paint the ring part on these jars white. I can use these jars for any of the quote red holidays. So I did 3 of them, but I took the lids I have all kinds of lids. Anyway, I took these lids and I painted these ones white because for Canada Day, these little jars could hold candies, a little bouquet of flowers, straws. There's all kinds of things that you can put in here when you're doing your coffee bar and your tiered tray, which is what most of these are for. Then you could just take these off. You could put some ribbon on here for Valentine's Day, for Christmas. Yeah, you can reuse these red jars for the other red holidays. So that's all I've done with the jars. They turned out pretty good. They're nice and opaque, and they've got white lids. So I'm just going to set these aside. I had a nice big wood flag, and I've lost it somewhere in my move from Ontario to here, but it was a nice big chunky one. It was made out of 3 boards that were cut down from a pallet. So 4-inch boards, so about 12 by 20 inches it was, and it looked really amazing. But I have these wooden plant labels from Dollarama, and there are 10 of these in here. So I'm thinking I could make a really cute little flag for my coffee bar area using these. So I don't know how many I have to get across this way. I'm not going to go to scale, but I'm thinking maybe 5 of these across and cut off here, maybe 6 of them across and cut off here would make a good sized sign. So I'm going to use 8 of these because I need 2 to put across the back. So yes, I'm going to assemble this first, and then I'm going to paint it. I'm just going to use my scissors. These are my kitchen shears to cut these, because these cut a lot of stuff. They're kitchen shears. They cut a lot of stuff, but they're not my good scissors. I don't have to worry about ruining them. There. And then I'm just going to cut the ends off of these to square them up. So what I'm thinking is that, and this is why I'm not doing it to scale, is because I'm not good at drawing a maple leaf, but this will make a great maple leaf for the center of my flag. And I think I'm just going to cut this out, glue it down, and then paint over it to give it some depth. I'm just going to grab my E6000 to start with, and I am going to put just a little dab of E6000 on each one of these boards. And then I'm going to grab my hot glue, and I'm going to put a little dab on each of these boards as well. These are Sure Bonder glue sticks, so they should hold fairly well. Let's line this up so that it's straight, and then put this down on top. And hold that down for a second so that that hot glue can grab, because you can see that some of these are a little bit warped. So by holding this down till that hot glue grabs on all of them, that'll ensure that the E6000 has a chance to set. And I'm going to do the same thing here at this end. And now I have a really great little wood piece to make a sign on. I love crafting with these little garden stakes from Dollarama. They're fantastic. So first thing I'm going to do is a coat of white paint on here. While I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit, I'm just going to cut out this maple leaf. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Mod Podge and put it down in the center of this board. I could just Google any maple leaf template and that's free to use. And then I could just trace it out on here and paint it. Yeah. So I'm going to go over just the width of the tape from the end of that leaf right there. And it might not be the same distance on both sides, but that's what I'm going to do because, like I said, I'm not worrying about scale. I'm just going for the overall look. And this isn't a flag maple leaf because it's not completely symmetrical. But I think that's what I kind of like about it. So I'm just going to push this down on this outside edge here where my paint is going to go. And then I'm going to use my red paint and paint red from there to the outside ends on both sides. There, to assemble this lighthouse, I'm going to take the hot glue and I'm going to put it just inside the rim of the second largest. Just inside the rim here. Just because that's what's going to sit down over this. And I'm just going to pop it straight down. And there. So then I'm going to do the same thing with the smaller one. I'm just going to put a little bead of glue right around the inside here. But this time I'm going to make sure that I line this up so that my windows are one above the other, like that. Then I'm just going to give it a good press down, and there I have a teeny little lighthouse, and I have a removable light that's just going to sit on top. This isn't quite dry. It's just going to sit on top like this. Now, do I want to embellish this with a few things? Maybe. I have some of this fern. I just took a couple of pieces off of one of my large ferns. And I think let's set that back down there to finish drying before I get red all over myself. I almost forgot that that wasn't glued on there. There. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to hot glue it so that it kind of comes around the bottom and up the side like this, like a little vine would grow. So let's lay this down like this. Put a little hot glue just on the back at the bottom here. And get that started. Then I can kind of face it towards me and figure out where I want it to go. I think just like that. There, just like that, just a little piece up the side. And I'm thinking that might be enough, or do I need another one? Maybe I need another little bit of it. Maybe add a little bit along the bottom, like this. Maybe a little bit off to the side. It's hard to tell. I'm very minimalist, I think, when it comes to my craft projects. Sometimes I used to be more is better, but I just got to the point where I thought I overdid everything. So I think I like that. And I'll kind of just give you a little look, just like this. But then I think I want a little bit of that greenery around the bottom. So what I'm going to do is cut these leaves off and put them on separately. This is just a little bit of that fern that I bought from Temu, and it is very plasticky looking fern when you get up close to it. From a distance it looks okay, but there's a lot of it for what I paid, and it just gives me so much to work with. So I'm just taking it and putting it along the bottom here. Any greenery would grow all the way to the ground at the bottom of the lighthouse. Like that. So I have all this greenery growing up from the bottom, which I think is absolutely adorable. And I think it's going to help this when it's on the tiered tray, because we always do need a bit of greenery when we're setting things up. So I think that's it. I think I did 7 pieces. My wreath for my front door, or my non-wreath for my front door, and my banner, as well as the other ones. If you would like to see how I incorporate all of these into my coffee bar and tiered tray, let me know in the comments which one of these projects was your favorite, or which one you would be more apt to try to do. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love you to do that before you leave, so you can come back and become part of my YouTube family, see what I'm up to next. I think you guys are all absolutely amazing. I hope you all have a wonderful Canada Day holiday. And for those in the South, a July 4th. See you all in the next one.